So this is a discussion that I have with people trying to build entrepreneurial ecosystems around the world, from Singapore to Ethiopia, and from New Zealand to India. And there's a couple of things that you want to build over time. The first one is expat networks, expatriate networks. If you look at the model of TICON, or TIE, the Indus entrepreneurs, over the past 30 years, that is a network that has been built of entrepreneurs that have come from India, come to the United States, built businesses, and then they're trying to help others in India then who are starting companies to build their markets in the United States. And you get this nice virtuous circle going. And so the first thing to do is to be thinking about how to leverage, no matter how small the expat network is. New Zealand actually has what they call a startup launchpad here in San Francisco. And New Zealand's a tiny country, 4.5, 5 million people, but they've seen the need to be able to leverage their expats to be able to build some of those bridges. The second is that there needs to be, I'm going to argue that it often needs to be a series of steps that companies go through, and just developing the market in Chile and then jumping to the United States might be appropriate for certain kinds of businesses where there's clearly, analogous markets in the United States, but it may well be you actually need multi-step in going to other Latin American countries first to develop that capacity for being able to manage multi-country initiatives. And then looking at the United States as an opportunity. And certainly, again, the more that you have poster children companies that have done that, then the better that process is, because then the better the partnerships develop with companies based in the United States. But we find that the countries that try to do just like a 1-2 step, like do their own country and then jump to the United States, what's really common in New Zealand, for instance, is and I use the analogy between New Zealand and Chile all the time, is because New Zealand is isolated completely by water and Chile is isolated by mountains and water. And then I use the example of Israel all the time because it's isolated by a whole bunch of countries that are angry at Israel. So the model that they use is they go first to Australia, which itself is not the world's most massive market, but they build that capacity as companies to be able to build connections to another country, to be able to build their supply chains, to be able to develop their employee hiring processes, to be able to have access to capital. And then they often come to places like China and the United States. And so that's, I think, a very effective and proven model. And I'm sure there's startups in Chile that are doing this, but that's something you can actually build a process for, is to give access to more local markets and then help them to be able to, and Mexico is a good example, because once you're doing Mexico, then you're more likely to be able to be successful in the United States.